Hi Year 2 and welcome back to our third lesson of outdoor learning this half term. So we are going to carry on with our topic on invertebrates. Right, hopefully you can all see the slides that I am sharing with you now. Okay, so as you know, an invertebrate is an animal without a backbone. Last lesson, we looked at insects. Why did we look at insects? Fantastic. So we looked at insects because insects don't have bones inside their bodies like we do. Instead, their skeleton is on the outside of their bodies. It's known as an exoskeleton. And this makes them invertebrates. Well done. I'm going to give you 20 seconds to see if you can remember some things about insects that we learnt last week. So how do we recognise an insect? I'm going to give you 20 seconds to either have a think, jot it down if you've got a piece of paper or a whiteboard, or speak to somebody next to you if there is someone learning with you today. Well done, Year 2. So we learned that they've got 3 body parts: the head, the thorax, and the abdomen. And we learned they've got 6 legs, a pair of antennae, and that sometimes they have wings. Fantastic if you remembered some of those facts from last week. So today we're going to look at a different group of invertebrates. Now, you might recognise some of these that are on the screen. So we've got a snail, a slug. So these are 2 things that we might find outside. We've got an octopus there at the bottom and some mussels. Does anyone know what all these type of invertebrates are called? They've got a special name. Does anybody know what they might be called? It's quite a tricky one, so I'm going to tell you. They are all called mollusks. So there are 85,000 different species of mollusks in the world. They have a soft, unsegmented body. All right, so that means they're, like a worm has lots of different segments, lots of different parts to its body. Mollusks just have one soft body, all right, that it's not in lots of different parts. So they don't have an exoskeleton like insects. Okay, so insects are invertebrates. They don't have bones inside their bodies like we do. They have an exoskeleton. But mollusks don't even have an exoskeleton. But quite a lot of them have shells which they use for protection. And most of them live in the sea or in rivers, but some live in damp places on land. So some examples of the ones that live on land are those snails and slugs that you can find outside in parks or gardens. So all those shells that you find on the beach, or actually not all of them, but most of the shells that you can find on a beach and collect, most of them used to be mollusks. So they used to have little creatures living inside them, and these are just their shells that remain after those creatures have died. So today, because this is probably one of the most common mollusks and one that we can find in our local area in London, is the snail. Okay, so that's what we are going to be looking at in a bit more detail today. So snails are a type of mollusk. They have a soft, unsegmented body. There are lots and lots of different types of snails. So there are snails that live in the water, but today we're going to be looking at land snails, like our garden snail that we can find in our local area. So land snails have a strong, muscular foot. And they can use this foot to drag their body along. They use mucus, which is a bit like slime, it's quite slimy, to help them to crawl over rough surfaces and to keep their soft bodies from drying out. So remember, we said that most mollusks live in the sea or in water, so they don't need to worry about drying out. But the mollusks that live on land have to have this slime or this mucus to keep them their bodies nice and soft. So you can spot where a land snail has been by looking for the silvery trail it's left behind. So with this mucus, it leaves a trail so you can see where it's gone. Snails use their shell as a home, and they can hide in their home in order to protect themselves from predators such as birds. Snails have two sets of tentacles. Their eyes are on the top set, and they also use that top set to smell through. The bottom set are used for touch and for tasting things. So, your activity today, I would like you to draw or print a picture of a snail and label the key parts of this snail. So these are the key parts I would like you to label. I would like you to label the shell, the foot, the tentacles, and the eyes. And even though it's not actually part of the snail itself, I'd also like you to draw a picture of the trail it leaves of that mucus, and I'd like you to label that as well. I would like you to try and write why the snail needs all these parts. So what does it use its really strong, muscly foot for? Why does it need two sets of tentacles? Where would I find its eyes? And what does it use its protective shell to do? So I'd like you to try and write what those things are for. If you can, with an adult, particularly after it's rained or if it's wet outside, you could go out and see if you could see any snails or slugs. And if you do, you could either take a photo or you could draw one that you have seen, which would be fantastic. You could also do some research on the computer or in a book on different mollusks, and you could draw a picture and label them as well. Okay, so the main task is for you to draw a picture of a snail and label it with shell, foot, tentacles, eyes, and trail. But if you can get outside and see a real life snail or slug, that would be amazing. And if you want to do some research on some other mollusks, remember we've got things like mussels and octopus, then you can also do some research on some other mollusks and draw pictures and label those as well. Here is just an example of the type of thing I'm expecting. There's a picture of a snail, and you can see its trail coming out behind it of the mucus, which it uses to keep itself moist and to help it move across rough land. And you can see I have labelled the top set of tentacles, and I've explained what the top set are for. So I've written their eyes are on their top set of tentacles, and they also smell through these. So those are what the top set of tentacles are. As you can see, I haven't labelled anything else, or I've labelled the eyes, but I would also need to label and explain what the bottom set of tentacles are doing. I'll need to explain about the snail's muscular foot and its shell and also its mucus trail. Okay, great. Well done, Year 2. I'm really excited to see your drawings and labels of snails and other mollusks this week. I have really enjoyed seeing your work uploaded on Seesaw, particularly all those insects that you drew and created last week. So well done those of you who've been uploading your work. Fantastic. Okay, right. I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.